Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Barefoot Bonsai. Today we're going to be taking a look at a bougainvillea in a bonsai pot. This was brought to me by one of our customers at Earth Works, and it has some training wire on it. And unfortunately the training wire has been left on too long, so the bark is beginning to grow over where the bonsai wire is. So today we are going to be removing that, and in addition we are also going to be unpotting the bougainvillea, inspecting the roots, and repotting it. So you can see here that we have a lot of wire on the branches, and wiring branches is very common in bonsai. It's used to hold the branches in a position. So the wire is placed and wrapped around the branches and then bent to hold branches at certain angles and certain positions. Unfortunately, this wire was left on too long, because if you look right in here, you'll see how it's been scarred. So the wire was left on much too long, and the tree began growing around the wire and causing these unsightly blemishes. So today I'm going to free the tree. So some of the tools that are needed to do this properly are tools like pliers, needle nose pliers, wire snips. I'm not sure if I'm going to need to rewire this in the pot. I may not. Hopefully we have a substantial root system. It may not have even been on that long. The bougainvillea is a very fast grower, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was a short period of time that it was on here. However, relative to how long it was needed to be on here, it has been on too long. So this is kind of tedious. However, very important. Otherwise, if I were to leave this on, and if that customer were to leave this on too long, it can actually girdle the tree to where you would have a lot of dieback. And that's because you would be cutting off the flow of food and water through the branches. Yeah, I got several dead branches up here. They're probably going to have to come off or be treated as deadwood as part of the feature of the tree. Now the trick is unweaving all this through existing branches. So I'm going to do a little handwork here, because there was a branch here, although it looks like it's dead. I don't want to take it off prematurely until I'm sure of that fact. Now this seems to be coming off pretty easy, although I'm going to cut this off again. After it gets so long, it's hard to get it around all the branches. Just about got the heavy gauge wire here. And it seems that whoever wired this did a pretty good job of wiring it, which is why it's difficult to take off, because if it's wired properly, it doesn't make it easy to take it back off. So we have a lot of new growth on this bougainvillea, which is a good sign. The tree's not dying. It's just that it's starting to suffer. We're having some dead branches forming. I'm going to go ahead and pinch some new growth off here because it's not needed anyway. So one of the things I am going to do today as well is remove this wire and repot and take a look at the roots, is I'm going to do a haircut on this tree as well. Yeah, this is a dead branch. This is the whole end of this branch is dead. So I don't think that the wire caused this branch to die, because right here it hasn't really grown in over the bark. I think this is just a coincidence. I do have quite a bit of dead wood on here. And honestly, I'm just going to cut that off right there. Yeah, this has been dead for some time. It's even beginning to decompose. It's been so long. If you've watched a few of my videos in the past, you'll notice I don't use wire, generally speaking. I have used wire in the past, and I may use it again in the future, but I prefer not to use it. there are other ways of training branches besides using wire. I use different types of weights, combination with twine. I use rocks as wedges. Is it the most effective way? Maybe not. But it's certainly gentler on the tree, because this is, if you're not, especially for a beginner, if you're not paying attention and you have a fast growing tree, quickly get out of hand and the tree starts growing around the wire, which is not good at all. So you have to be careful when you're removing this, because if I have to support the branch, I have to hold it while I'm taking this wire off, because if I were just to bend the wire off, you'd snap the branches. So I know it may be hard to see in the video, but I'm holding the branch as I'm untwisting this wire simultaneously to give the branch support, because when I'm unbending this, it actually puts a lot of stress and a lot of pressure in the opposite direction. And here at the end, whoever put this on really put it on tight. I'm taking that branch off. It was facing the bottom, which I don't like. Getting this last piece off should come off with a twist. Not exactly. Got a little bit of scarring there, and there we go. But here on these smaller branches is where most of the damage was done. So the smaller branches growing a little faster than the thickening of the trunk down here. You can see where most of the damage was done by this wire beginning to girdle the tree. The rubbing of this wire on the branch has caused a little bit of the bark to come off. However, the short-term pain here for the tree is long-term gain, because leaving this on is not an option. There we go. All right. I think I just have one last section. I don't know the history of this tree, so again, this is another tree that has come to me from a customer. I don't know what it's gone through. There we go. All right, so there it is. All the wire is off and free. So my next step here is going to be take these nice pebbles out, because I'm going to take this tree out of its pot. So somebody has put some ornamental pebbles here on top. So I'm going to grab these and set them to the side. Okay, there is a large wire on the bottom I'm going to have to cut. All right, the wires have been cut. They're now free. Yeah, we got some root rotting here. We had a really wet year here in Northeast Florida. I suspect, and this happens a lot, and you'll hear me say this over and over again when I inspect trees, that I suspect all this moisture has lent to some root damage. So I'm pulling out my handy dandy chopsticks here. Very important tool when preparing to unpot a tree. So what I'm doing now is I'm just going around the edges in an up and down motion and just loosening up any roots that might be clinging to the sides of the pot. Y'all might hear some of the migratory birds here in the background. So one of the nice things about living in Northeast Florida is that all the birds that live further north come down to visit us, which is kind of cool. Our snowbirds. Oh wow. seeing some new roots, and I am seeing some dead roots in here. It had a lot of new roots down there in the bottom. I'm not going to disturb those roots at this point. There's plenty of soil still in this mix. I hold this together and place it back in. Now, you can see here where this is tilting a little bit. It had several roots that rotted. And again, I'm going to attribute that to the excessive moisture that we've had this year. All right, so although this wobbles a little bit, what I'm going to probably end up doing, I'm going to find some rocks to put in here on either side of the tree, like a rock here and a rock here to help stabilize it. That will be a very easy way for the tree to be stabilized without doing anything too invasive to it. When I was looking at the bottom, I didn't see any large roots, so I don't think anything needs to be cut out. And I think this tree has several more years, or at least a few more years in here before it would need to be completely repotted, meaning that taking all the soil away from the root system and then putting all fresh soil in and starting all over again after doing a root pruning. There's plenty of space, plenty of area, plenty of volume in this pot for the root system to grow into. And as the roots grow, and I am going to give the owner of this tree a few pointers to help stimulate the roots, to speed up the process of this tree being able to hold itself up in this pot. Luckily, it's a big pot, so this is like a beginner pot. This is a pot that is much bigger than what's needed for this size tree. It could go actually into a much smaller pot for the size of this tree. However, for beginners, having a bigger pot is much better, much easier on the tree, much easier for the owners to be able to take care of it with a lot less work. All right, so at this point, I'm going to do some pruning. I'm going to spin the tree around a few times and just take a good look at it to see what needs to go. I'm already seeing several candidates. So you can see here that this branch is kind of covering up the natural flow of the tree, which is moving up and then over here to the side, and these branches here are covering that up. So I'm going to come in here with some snips and remove some of these branches that are not where they should be. I also have another branch right here developing that's crossing over. So I'm going to take that off as well. And then we have a few branches that are growing underneath. All right, so now you can see right away, just by doing that, how that opens that up and allows the viewer to see the flow in the direction of the tree in the way that it's moving. Now, all this is dead wood. I'm going to leave that on for the time being. It may or may not take that off. Got another branch developing in there. Let me spin this around. All right, I also have a branch, just a little one here that's distracting, coming back in toward the tree. You can pinch off little ones here that are developing, opening it up a little bit. I also have a branch here on the back side that's unnecessary. All right, got another branch that's moving down. I'm going to create some space between this area here and this pad here. So I'm going to be cutting off some of this back here to open up this space. So these should be distinct pads. So this should be a distinct grouping. This should be a distinct grouping. And then this should be a distinct grouping over here. And another distinct grouping and probably another. So we have 4 or 5 areas, 4 or 5 levels that should be distinct. So because bougainvillea are fast growers, I'm going to explain to the owners that this tree will need to be pruned on a regular basis, or that they should bring it in to come visit me to be pruned if they're not comfortable doing it, either way. But in order for this to be maintained, it's going to have to be pruned a lot more often than other species. That has everything to do with how quick this tree grows. But right now I'm going to get rid of some of the most obvious branches that don't need to be here, and then some of the dead wood. that doesn't need to be here. I'm also cutting some of this for length and pruning this back to kind of unify some of these distinct canopies that are here. Here's another one that's pointing straight down. That one's going to come off. This one's distracting because it's coming in toward the front. And already the tree's beginning to open up a little bit. Now this branch will probably need to be directed back over this direction at some point. It's not too far off, but it could come back in a different direction. Then I'm just going to do a real heavy cut here and here, there and there. All right, so now what we're beginning to see are the distinct layers of the tree. So let me point them out. We got a distinct layer here that we're going to develop, a distinct layer here, and another distinct layer there. So when I was mentioning earlier, that's what I was talking about, just creating that separation between the different pads of the tree. So these are back branches. They're away from the tip. These are not going to be necessary because the pad that will form will be right here, and this will just not be necessary. Just pulling off some dead wood. Looks like some caterpillars I got on here too. You can see these leaves have been munched at. There is a small caterpillar that likes to eat bougainvillea. I usually use the Bacillus thuringiensis, the BT, to control the caterpillars on the bougainvillea. Actually, any caterpillars on any plant can be controlled. It's just a beneficial bacterium for us, not so beneficial for caterpillars. You could use it on species of plants where you have caterpillars munching away. Definitely keep it away from your butterfly garden because it will kill the caterpillars that will be turning into butterflies. All right, so I think that's about all I'm going to do at this point. And we got some pretty good bones for a really interesting tree here. A little more training over time, plenty of haircuts. I'll be making sure that the owners of this tree keep it on a strict feeding schedule to keep the root system growing as well as the top growth here, and hopefully blooming. Hopefully they can get this tree to bloom for them this season while it's warm. But that's about it. And I think we have a really good looking tree that was under some duress with the wire, but I think it's going to be in good shape. It should grow out of some of the scarring, maybe not all of it, but hopefully some of these blemishes here, the tree will outgrow that and come back into shape here sooner than later. Thanks a lot for joining us today, and keep watching us on the Barefoot Bonsai on our YouTube channel, Earth Works Jax. Subscribe, share, please make comments, and I'll see you next time.